today I'm going to show you guys how to make a delicious, tender, braised Jewish brisket, perfect for Passover, Shabbat dinner, or really just any weeknight dinner that you want to eat something delicious. So when you're shopping for your brisket, you want to make sure that you have a good piece of meat with a lot of marbling throughout it. That fat is going to melt into your meat, making it super tender, super flavorful. Brisket is a kosher cut of beef from the chest region, and it's going to lend a lot of flavor to our veggies, which are also in turn going to pick up some of that fat as it drips down. And you can cook them in the same pot, which lends up a lot of free space in your oven. All right, so to get started, we're going to go ahead and add our oil into the pan. Got a medium high heat going on. And you can either use two tongs or tongs and a spatula to get it in there, whatever you need to do. It's kind of wonky, it's a little hard because it's a heavy piece of meat and it's large, but we're gonna make it work. All right, so that is going in for a sear. We're gonna make sure that has a nice crust on the bottom. And we're probably gonna give it about 5 to 8 minutes. We'll check it and see how we're doing. And then we're gonna flip it so the other side gets the same crust. And that is gonna help build a really delicious flavor profile on this piece of meat. All right, I think we've got a nice crust on the bottom, so I'm just gonna go ahead and move this over to our other plate. Keeping the fat side up, because that's how we're gonna put it back in the pan after the veggies are done. So we're gonna let that rest. And now while the pan is still hot, we're gonna add in our veggies. We're using onion, celery, carrot, and mushroom. These are gonna add a ton of flavor, and they're gonna be the perfect side dish. So we cut everything up into bite-sized pieces. This will help them cook at roughly the same time while the meat is braising and not be too soft, because if they're too little, they might get too mushy before the meat's done cooking. And then we got our mushrooms. I left most of these whole because a lot of them are like button sized, about, bite sized, and these will shrink anyways, but for the larger ones, I did cut those in half. So we're gonna use the juice from the meat and we're gonna cook the veggies in that for about 5 to 10 minutes until the flavors start to come out and they get sort of tender. All right, our veggies are looking good. We're hitting that crisp, tender stage. Everything has shrunken down a decent amount, which is good because it's going to make room for our brisket. All right, so now we're going to transfer our brisket into the pan and we're going to keep the fat side up. This is important because while it's cooking, all those juices from the fat are going to seep down, helping tenderize the meat and helping the veggies get the best flavor possible. So now that our meat's in there, we're gonna just add the rest of our ingredients in, which is our tomato sauce. Pour over top our brisket, our cup of water, or 3/4 cup, I mean. Some horseradish, and Worcestershire sauce. Now you do wanna make sure that your Worcestershire is kosher because not all Worcestershire is, so just check the label. All right, so all those flavors are gonna just get to know each other, and we're just gonna pop the lid on for this. Let's see, where's my top? And we're gonna let this braise for about 2.5 to 3 hours, and it's gonna get super tender. You want the liquid in the bottom to simmer, but not boil, just so it keeps a nice even heat and it'll braise and not overcook the meat and make it chewy. So we've been cooking this for 3 hours, and we're gonna just take a peek, see how it's doing. Oh yeah, it's got a gentle simmer going. And you can see all the fat is pooled right on top, which is great because after we take the meat out, we're gonna go ahead and skim most of that off. All right, so I've got my tongs and I'm just gonna place this on this board. And I'm gonna put this right on the board for now. All right, and then the fat is pooled on top of the broth or the drippings really well, so I'm just gonna leave my veggies in there while I do some of the skimming. And just do your best to get some of those larger pools of fat off. And if you can't get all of it, once it's cooled, they'll harden and you can just pick them right off before you put them in your fridge. All right, so that should be good. It's the majority of it. You want to keep a little bit in there. But from here, we're going to go ahead and take our vegetables out with a slotted spoon, but make sure you save all that delicious juice because we're going to pour that all over our sliced up brisket when we're done. All right, so our brisket is done, and we let it rest for just a few minutes for all those juices to settle in so that it's not too hot to handle when we're slicing. And speaking of slicing, you want to make sure that you are going perpendicular to the grain. So the grain is the fiber which the meat runs along, and we're gonna find the opposite of that, perpendicular, and cut that way so that we ensure we get a super tender slice. Cutting with the grain can make for a tougher piece, so you always want to make sure you're cutting against. Oh yeah, and it should fall right off, just like that. Oh, look at those juices coming out. It's cutting beautifully, like butter. Look at that, so gorgeous, all sliced up. We got our veggies on the plate. We're serving this with some potato latkes and some Manischewitz wine, keeping everything kosher. And we're just gonna take our drippings from the pan and put everything over the meat. It looks so gorgeous. It's gonna take all those juices and just lend extra flavor, extra tenderness. Now, if you wanted to make a gravy, you could take this sauce and just thicken it up with a little slurry using potato starch, and it would just thicken it up sort of more to like a gravy if you prefer that to like an au jus dipping sauce sort of consistency. Either way, it's gonna be delicious.